Thank you for coming to the event today. Jerry Firestein, currently the Director for Government Relations Policy and Programs here at the Middle East Institute. Pleased to welcome you to today's panel, which will delve into the recent successes and future challenges facing the new generation movement in Iraq. This opposition political party was formed in January of this year and was able to run and win seats in both the Iraqi and Kurdistan parliaments in May. The party ran on a campaign of increased opportunities for youth, minorities, and women, as well as a plan to combat corruption. Their electoral wins raised the question of how newly elected leaders will address these complex issues. We're fortunate to have with us today Shaswar Abdulwahid, the president of the New Generation Movement in Iraq. He is the founder of NRT Media. He also launched the No for Now campaign against the Iraq Kurdistan independence referendum, in addition to launching Kurd News, a news station devoted to the political movement. He's currently focusing his attention on media investment in order to inform citizens of their rights through the media. Here to moderate the conversation is MEI scholar Dan Server. Dan directs the Conflict Management Program at the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. He's also a senior fellow here at the Middle East Institute, as well as the Center for Transatlantic Relations. His current interests focus on the civilian instruments needed to protect U.S. national security, as well as transition and state building in the Middle East, North Africa, and the Balkans. Before I turn it over to Dan, let me go over a few housekeeping items. First, we ask that you silence your cell phones, but remember to tweet your thoughts and questions using the hashtag MEIIraq. If you're a regular attendee at MEI events, be sure to buy your tickets for MEI's annual gala and register for the annual conference, which will take place next Wednesday and Thursday, November 7th and 8th, at the Marriott Wardman Park Hotel. You can find details on our website, and we hope to see you all there. And with that, please join me in welcoming Shaswar and Dan.
It's a pleasure to be here, and a particular pleasure, I think, because Iraq, though not heaven on earth, is not the worst place in the Middle East these days. And the fact of the matter is that we've now seen a process of government formation in Iraq that is more open in some respects than in other countries in the Middle East, and more responsive to its population. And one of the ways it was responsive, the parliamentary election was responsive to its population, is in giving this new generation movement 4 seats in Baghdad, 8 seats in Erbil. Not bad for a first-timer. But Shaswar, you're here in Washington. This is prime time now. You have to tell us not only what you hope this new generation movement will do, but what your strategy is for getting it done.
Okay. First, thanks for everybody. Thanks for being here today with you, and thanks for this opportunity. Actually, the new generation movement is an idea for the future, not only the future of Kurdistan region, but even the future of all Iraq. Until now, all political sectors or field was running or led by we say old guards, by the people who was in the mountain or outside in Iraq fighting against Saddam. For the last 50 years, the politics was led by those politicians. But now it's the first time in 2018, a new generation, a new people. When we say a new generation, we don't mean only the youth, but we mean the new generation of politicians, the people who they never had a chance, who they never had any position or in a political party, but now it's a chance for them to come to the field, to the government, to the parliament, and say whatever they want to say. Our strategy for the future is taking more care about the youth, the women, and actually the economic, especially the development of the country. As everybody knows, the Iraq and Kurdistan region is one of the wealthy country in the area. But unfortunately, our youth and our people, they are looking day after day, years, for a job opportunity. So this is what we want to change. We want to use our wealth and our natural resource to develop our country to be one of the developed country.
But you only have 8 seats. I've forgotten how many seats there are in the Kurdistan parliament.
111.
111. 8 seats isn't bad, but it's still small. 4 seats in Baghdad is even smaller.
Right.
So what's the strategy? How are you going to stay in opposition? Or are you going to try to make alliances? Are you going to sell out to one of the big parties? What are you going to do?
Yeah. First, our main strategy is to be an opposition. We don't want to be a part of the government, not in Baghdad and not even in Erbil. This is number one. After that, I want to tell you that don't forget that we start only, it is 9 months. I mean, since the first election on May, it was 4 months. By 4 months, we got 4 seats from the Baghdad. And for the last election on September, it was only 8 months and took 8 months of the Kurdistan. It's a good start. We are now came to the politics, and our competitors are having the army, money, a lot of resource, and they are doing a politics and having in the field for 50 years, 60 years. But still, we believe in the future, maybe after 4 years and 8 years, we will do whatever we believe in it, and we will reach our targets. For now, we think we should find the other people who they have the same vision as us, and we all together, we have to have an alliance and be a big group having impact on the parliament in Baghdad, and I hope so the same in Erbil. And I think it will change something. Before, in Baghdad, no one was in opposition. Everybody was running behind the post, money, minister, or some position, and no one cared about the opposition. But now we want to change that idea. In the parliament, there should be people, the MPs, who they support the government, and there should be an opposition having an idea and working for the future and monitoring the government and having a plan, making the legislative authority active again. So this is our idea, but as a starter, we think it's good, but from now, we are planning for 2022 for the next election, and we want to make this 4 seats 40 and the 8 48 maybe in the future.
So it's been, you said Kurdistan is a rich country, Iraq is a rich country, but it has been plagued by corruption, by state enterprises that have been inefficient, by a failure to let resources go to ordinary people. What is your economic plan? How are you going to make sure that these mistakes aren't repeated in the future?
Before I'm talking about our plan, I have to say that whatever will be our plan, it's difficult. It's not too easy because of all those things that you mentioned. But our plan is, first, make the judiciary system independent, really. If we don't have a judiciary system, we cannot fight the corruption. And also, don't forget, we cannot bring the foreign investment to Iraq. Because everybody, when they want to come to Iraq, they want to be sure, they want to feel safe that their interest and everything what they have in Iraq is protected, and there is a law protect them. So first, number one, we have to make the judiciary system independent and strong and above everything else. Number two is by supporting more private sector. What we have in Kurdistan and Iraq is all government. They sell the oil, they put some money in their pocket and spend the other money as a salary. They don't have any vision for the future. They don't have a vision to build a strategy project. They don't have a vision how they make the private sector strong, how they bring the foreign companies to Iraq to invest in Iraq, how they support the local companies. Just imagine in all Iraq the foreign investment is less than 10%. In such a country like Qatar, it's more than 50, it's about 58%. And in Kurdistan region, let me talk you about the Kurdistan region. 90% of the companies now, they don't have any business, and most of them, they are broken, and they don't have any more business to do. Why? Because we don't have a real private sector. What we have is the political party, the leader of the political party, they control everything, and they have their own company as a private sector company, but it's not private sector, because private sector, it means everybody come to the field, do competition, doing whatever they think is good for their country. So fighting the corruption is by judiciary system, and also having a good parliament and a free and fair election. This is three problems that until now we didn't succeed. We don't have all those things independent or effective. But in the future, if we have those three institutional, strong and effective, then we could support the private sector and fighting the corruption.
Maybe I can press you for a little bit more detail. Iraq is a rich country because of oil.
Right.
What would you do with the oil revenue that's different from what's being done today?
That's exactly what we are talking about. We don't bring the oil revenue to give it as a salary to everybody. If we support the private sector, then we don't need to pay from the oil revenue billions of dollars as a salary to the people. Now, let me give you some numbers. In Iraq, in Kurdistan region, 69% of the women are unemployed, and 24% of the men unemployed. And the rest, where they are employed, 89% of them employed with the government's offices. Only 11% of those people employed by the private sector. That's a problem. If we have an oil revenue, we can support the agriculture sectors, the industry sector, the tourism sectors. We can build the projects, strategy projects, making a job opportunity for our people with those oil revenue. So the oil revenue should not only given as a salary. We should have a project. If, for example, I came from the business background, if we have $1 million, we can invest this $1 million and having a project with $10 million, maybe $100 million. But if we put this only $1 million as a salary, so it's done. And we cannot do everything, a lot of things with this $1 million. So this is our strategy, that more investment and supporting the private sector and having a project, making the agriculture industry, tourism, and other sectors strong and supporting them. And also, sorry, for the last thing, supporting the small businesses. We have a lot of small businesses, nobody supporting them. For example, I had a small company, but I support as 300 youth when they had the small businesses. And each of them brought 1, 2, 3 people to employ. So that's how we can support the private sector and finding a job opportunity for everybody.
Of course, politics doesn't go away even if you're most concerned about the future of the economy. And the biggest political issue in Iraq is Kurdistan and its desire for independence. You led the movement, a campaign called No for Now, which ironically, of course, is pretty much what I wrote once upon a time just before the referendum in the Washington Post. No for now, why? Why did you take that position on the referendum? And how do you see the future of Iraq and Kurdistan's place in it?
Yeah. Because of 2 factors, international factors and the internal factors. I was in USA before the referendum, and I met with, I had a meeting with a lot of people in DC, in state departments and other places. I hear that we don't have the international support. So this is a good reason for our leader to think. And the internal factors is, until now, we don't have institution in Kurdistan. We don't have judiciary system in Kurdistan. We don't have united army. We don't have economic. Just imagine now if the Turkey and Iran close the border, maybe we don't have anything to eat. I mean, we have something domestic, but it's not enough. We bring most of what we needed from the Turkey and Iran. So if we don't make this institution strong, and if you don't make our economy strong, how you become a country? Until now, the Kurdish government in Kurdistan, they can't give the electricity to the people. The people, they don't have water to drink. How they make an independent country for their people? It's not just speak. It's not just you say, I'm doing the independent country. The independent country, they should have a united army, but now we have some Peshmerga divided by 2 political parties. The independent country, they should have the very strong economy, which we don't have. Economy, as I say, we don't have private sector, we don't have anything. The independent country, we should have institutions, which we don't have any institution. Even the parliament last year closed by some gunmen by a political party. How the political party could close parliament and prevent the speaker to enter the parliament. We have a lot of issues. And the third point, which is important for me, I believe now we should have a good relation with Baghdad. We should try both Erbil and Baghdad to make the Iraq develop it. We should give a prosperous life for our people. I mean, it's enough. It's more than 100 years we fighting each other. We killing the people. But where we get, what's the point? So, if we could live together, all the nations of Iraq, the Kurd, Arab, Christian, Turkmen, Yazidi, all of them, and try to make the Iraq developed country, and finding the job for our people, and having a good university, a good education system. So this is what the people want. The people, they don't want only the border because they want to live inside the Kurdish country. There's a lot of country in the world. They are independent, but they don't have a life. They don't have the bread, water, services. So those things, I think, before the independence, we should ask our people what you want. As I say, the people, they don't have electricity until now. They don't have drinking water. So you come and talk to them about the independence. They say, come on, just find me a job, and then talk about the independence.
I'm thinking Americans should be so lucky as to have politicians like this. I'm tempted to turn to the audience for questions. But did you have anything in addition you wanted to say before I do that?
No.
So the floor is open. Please, introduce yourself. No speeches, but I think there should be a mic. Hello? Hello? Microphone? I think I turned to questions earlier than the organizers had anticipated, but I'd already decided whom to vote for, so, you know. There we go.
Thank you. Can you hear me? My name is Dilman Abdulkader, Director of the Kurdistan Project at the Endowment for Middle East Truth. Kak Shaswar, my question for you is, how do you plan on penetrating through, you mentioned earlier that the two parties control the military. They're armed parties. They're not your average political parties, like, for example, like yours or the Change Movement. How do you plan on penetrating through, and to a degree you have in Slemani, but how do you plan on penetrating through Erbil, Dahok, Zaho, where the KDP has such strong loyalties in addition to their armed groups? And also my secondary question is the issue of transparency. You understand that the Kurdistan region has a lot of wealth. How can we reveal all this wealth? Who has all these? Where is all this wealth has gone? Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, about the security issues and the Peshmerga, I think the situation in Slemani and Erbil, they are so close to each other. It's right, maybe there is a small difference, but at the end, the Peshmerga, led by the political party, and they give them the salary and logistic issue. For us, it's important that in the future, and I think there is an international plan, especially by the US and UK government, they have a plan for the next 8 years to make at least a big part of the Peshmerga to be independent. I think it's not easy, and it's not done by one day, one night, but I think it's a project for the future. All of us, we should think and try to make the Peshmerga independent. We should have the national army instead of the political parties Peshmerga. So this is our plan. And the good news is the international community's plan. All of us, we will try to making this sector better in the future. About the transparency, also, I think, as I say, it's not easy. Don't forget, if we do a real, even if the KDP and PUK doing a real reform, they will fall. Because, for example, let me tell you some sample. The head of the colleges in the universities, they belong to one political party. It's not whose professor he's good, they give him a responsibility. No, who has the loyalty of the political party? In the schools, the teachers who they have a loyalty of the political party, the government give him opportunity to be a manager, not the teacher who reading more or having researching more or doing well in the education. In the all other sectors, it's the same. So, if they do, the government, the KRG, do the reform now, they will fall because all their system built it on the loyalty to the political party. For us, we hope that in the future, day after day, year after year, we're doing a reform step by step and trying to encouraging the people to making them creative, and who more creative will have a good position, and that will be change a lot of things. But until now, the judiciary system, the other system, most of them, they have a loyalty of the political parties, so we can't change anything. If we send someone to the court, nobody, asking him or judging him. Just another sample. Some protester 7 years ago, they killed by a government officer, and now he's asking by a court. Imagine he got a new position in Erbil, like a 20 judge visiting him to go congratulate him, to congratulate that man that he's asked by the court and it's wanted. So this is somehow how we have. As I said, it's not easy, but we will try to doing a reform in the future. If we get the support of the people and the international support, then we could change a lot of things.
Please.
My name is Mark Habib. I teach at Georgetown University, and I'm also with the London-based Arab Weekly newspaper. So you've talked some about the political challenges that Iraq faces and that your young party faces, but I see that you also are involved in the media, have investments in media. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the challenges that the media, that the free press, that journalists face, not only in Iraq, broadly speaking, but also in the Kurdistan region, and what role the media can play in bringing about some of the political change that you'd like to see.
Thank you so much, and thanks for the question. We, as founder of one media TV station, we faced a lot of threatening and attack. Even myself, I had an assassination attempt on 2013 because I was funding a media TV station, and they burned down our TV station, and they are killing the journalists in Iraq and in Kurdistan region. They are treating the people, and in the other hand, they try to buy the journalists to having a lot of media, TV, newspapers. So sometimes they attacking you by creating or establishing 100 other media stations, journalists, TV station. The situation of media in Iraq and Kurdistan region, I think it's in the worst case. But there is a difference. For example, in Baghdad and in Iraq, sometimes the threatening on the journalists is more because the media has more impact. Because we have a parliament monitoring everybody and no one is strong enough to have majority, then the media is more efficient and has more impact in Baghdad. But in Kurdistan, the media and even parliament itself, we don't have any impact. Why? Because the political party and the ruling party, they have an army and they control everything. As I say, they control the judiciary system, the legislative system, and also the executive system. So no one listening to media. We don't have the court even if we have cases. 2 years ago, I remember the NRT TV channel, they have a report about the corruption of the oil, and they show evidence that monthly over $300 million disappear. Just imagine what the court and the judiciary system did. They sent NRTs to court and asking him, where you got this evidence? They didn't went to government to say, where is this $300 million going? They say, where you got this evidence? So this is the case of the media. I mean, we don't have an impact, but we don't have to be hopeless. We always came to Washington and other places talking to the international community. We're thinking that we could change it, and we will try to have a plan for the next 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, whatever, but we will not give up. And we are sure about one thing. If we don't support the democracy and free media in Iraq, then we will not have the stability in Iraq in the next 10 years. Because the people, year after year, they will be disappointed and hopeless about the political situation and not going to vote. And what will be the alternative if the people don't believe in or losing their believing in the democracy process and election? I think the alternative will be the violence. So that's why everybody should support the democracy in Iraq and Kurdistan region and free media, and also supporting the free and fair election.
Right behind that.
I'm Peter Humphrey, Intel analyst and a former diplomat. I'm wondering, you're mature enough now, big enough now, to take international outreach pretty seriously. And so I'm wondering on that front what you've been doing, what you would like to do, why you want to talk to certain entities, what you hope to get from them, learn from them. For example, do you chat with the HDP in Turkey? Do you avoid chatting with the HDP in Turkey? So this kind of thing. What's your international strategy?
Sir. First, about the international relations, and we as a new generation, we take care more about the internal influence and working, inside the Iraq and Kurdistan, and also the international community. For example, myself today, I was in the State Department and talking to the people in the U.S. government and talking about all those threatening on the democracy process in Iraq. This is important for us, not only in the USA, in UK and other Europe and other countries. They are supporting Iraq, and they should support the free and fair election and democracy in Iraq, not only some ruling party. About the other places that you mentioned, we are glad to have the good relation with our brothers in Kurdistan and in the neighbors country, and also with the neighbors country itself. The Kurdistan region cannot fight everybody, cannot be in the fighting situation always. The people of Kurdistan, they need stability, they need development, they need more prosperous life. And how we can have this? By having a good relation with Baghdad, with Tehran, with Ankara, with everybody, and with the other political party in that area. This is our strategy. First, living together, having good relations, peace, and then development. Thank you.
Thanks. Is it working? Shaswar. I have two questions. First, I'm Namo Abdullah with Rudao Media Network. So the first one, will you join the parliament? I know you said you'll be in opposition, meaning you wouldn't join the government. Will you join the parliament? And the second one, I want your take on the current level of tensions between the KDP and PUK. What do you think about that, and where's Kurdistan headed? Thanks.
Thank you. First, I think tomorrow in Kurdistan, the leaders of the new generation, they will have the meeting and they will decide if they will go to parliament or no. Until now, what we heard from our voters and our people in Kurdistan region and also the international community, they are supporting, they are, trying to send a message to us that please go to parliament, don't boycott the parliament. And tomorrow, I hope that we will have the decision. About the relation between PUK and KDP, I know there is something happening now, but personally, I think at the end, the PUK and KDP, they agree because they have common interest. The KDP and PUK in Kurdistan, they are partners. They are partners of what they did in the past, and what will they get in the future. So I think at the end, KDP and PUK, they will work together. There is something between them, but the interest is more than the conflict. Thank you.
Shaswar, maybe I can mention something you told me earlier, which is that you personally will not go to parliament, if I understand correctly.
Me as a person, yeah.
Neither in Kurdistan nor in Baghdad. But there's a good tradition of that, of political leaders who don't go to parliament in many parliamentary systems. Please.
I'm Ken Byercourt. A number of Iraqi leaders have called for the immediate withdrawal of American troops from Iraq. Where does your party stand on that issue?
For us, to be honest, I think the new Iraq, the U.S. government did a good job before on 2003 when they changed the system and the Saddam regime and brought a new system. And for me personal, I think having those army in Iraq and Kurdistan region, for the moment, it's necessary because it supports the stability in Iraq and in Kurdistan and making the influence of maybe some other country list. Because otherwise, we saw after the 2014, when the U.S. Army, most of the U.S. Army went out from the Iraq, what happened? Because the ISIS. So I think for me, it is good we have those army in Iraq and Kurdistan region.
I have questions over on this corner, and then I'll go to the back.
Hi, Ryan Greenwood, Heartland Alliance International, based in Suleimania. So I know you just talked about outreach a little bit earlier. I'm interested to know a little bit more about your specific strategy for the private sector in Kurdistan and how you plan to build that up, specifically working with internal investors.
Thank you. As I said, first we have to support the private sector inside the Iraq and Kurdistan, and second, to encourage the other international or foreign companies to enter the Iraq. How? By changing some rules, first, to encourage them to come to Iraq and Kurdistan. Second, by doing a reform from the judiciary system, because I met with a lot of U.S. businessmen, and most of them saying, listen, the security, okay. First, they have a problem with the security issue. Second, they're afraid about the judiciary system. They say if we come to the Iraq and Kurdistan and if we have a problem with any of your company or even the government, where we have to go, to which court, this is a problem. So for us, our strategy is supporting the private sector and trying to have a real private sector in Kurdistan. If we have a real private sector in Kurdistan and Iraq, then those private sector, they will find a partner from outside of Iraq, and they will bring them, or at least they will have a trade between them. But now we don't have a real private sector. What we have in Iraq and Kurdistan, the political party, they are doing a business and politics together. And actually they are not good in the business because they never got $100 by themselves. Just they can do, they can, pushing someone and having a corrupt, and by this way they are doing a business. So it's not really a business or the private sector. So number one, supporting private sector. Number two, encouraging the foreign company to come to Kurdistan. And the strategy will be by changing some rule to supporting them, and also by making a reform from the judiciary system. This 2 point is very important, and I'm sure it will help and it will encourage the companies to come to Iraq.
Would you support distribution of oil revenue to individuals, to the population?
Actually, I think if we manage the revenue of the oil, as you mentioned from the beginning, with the good management, the people, they don't want the distribution of the oil revenue, because the distribution of the oil revenue is small. For example, now if, say, we have a $4 million and the budget for 1 year is $80 billion. If you divide it by 40 million people, I mean, maybe it's nothing, it's not too much. But if you invest the revenue of the oil and having 10 or 100 times the income, so the people will have more profit from this oil revenue. Look at to the Gulf countries. They are not, I mean, the developed countries especially, they are not happy because the government give them all the oil revenue and distribute it. No, because they have an investment. Everybody doing a business and having a lot of company coming from outside, a lot of people coming from outside to their company to invest. So this is how we have to do. We have to do the same thing, supporting agriculture, industry, tourism, and all other sectors, and supporting the people to have a small business. Me in person, I don't like to give a salary to the people. The salary is not enough to everybody in Kurdistan and Iraq to give them $200, $300. No. Support the people who they have an idea and they want to become a businessman, or they want to have their own businesses, and then they could bring a lot of peoples to their businesses, and that's why we solve the problem.
I had another person over here, I think, maybe not. One back there. You're next. Sorry, I meant back there, but that's okay. You'll be next, and then here.
Omar Nadawi, I'm an Iraq analyst here in DC. My question is about the recent elections in Kurdistan. The results that were announced have been facing objections from some of the opposition parties. How do you see these objections affecting the new cabinet formation, and how do you see the new cabinet when it comes? How do you see that being different from its predecessors? Thank you.
I'm not happy to tell you that, but I think the rejection is nothing. Everybody is saying that we are reject the result, but unfortunately, they don't have an act. For example, we as a new generation, we came today to Washington, D.C. to tell to our friends here in Washington that it's not going to work in the future. If we have the same election time after time, years after year, then the people, they don't believe in the election, and the alternative will be the violence. But unfortunately, I don't do the same act from our friends and the opposition party in Kurdistan. And the worst news, and unfortunately, we hear that some of them trying even to be a part of the government, that they by themselves, citing the KDP and PUK and saying that they did a cheating and fraud in the election. So we, as a new generation, reject the result of the election totally, and we think it is the worst election done in Iraq. This year, we had 2 elections on May and September. It's the worst 2 elections in Iraq since 15 years, and hope that we will find a solution in the future for a next election, maybe in 2022. And that's what we are working on it.
Ghaith Al-Ta'i Fellow and representative of Iraq in Community Solution Program. Kaka, as I know, one of your main goals is support the youth segment. So can you talk about your strategic plan for doing that in Kurdistan area and in Iraq generally?
Again? Now in Kurdistan and in Iraq, there is a lot of youth. They are not employed. They are unemployed. And we have a lot of people graduated from the university, but also they cannot find a job. It's not only about supporting the youth, which I believe in it. It's also about the security and the stability in Iraq and Kurdistan. Now, a lot of people, a lot of youth, they are leaving Iraq. Just last a few months, we have 300 people dead in the seas between Turkey and Greece. And also there is a lot of people, we saw it in 2014 and 2017, was joining ISIS. Why? Because they didn't have a job opportunity. And also we have an education problem, the schools, the universities. So we are supporting the youth first by we want to making a reform in the education and universities. Also, supporting the youth by creation a job for them. As I say, by funding, supporting the private sector. because I'm sure that the government itself cannot employ 25 millions of people. So what is the solution? Supporting the private sector, then the private sector will find a job for those youth. And also, it's not just a job. We have a lot of intelligent people, the youth, the clever youth, but they don't have the opportunity to service their people. For example, in the university, it's not who student, which is very clever and number one in his class, and after he finished it, graduated, employed. No. Which student has a loyalty to political party and knows someone from the political party, they will employ. So this is make our people and our youth not believing in anything, making our youth saying why I study, why I go to university. At the end, or even when I go to university, why I think, why I try to be a creative. At the end, I will not be employed. The student will be employed who has nothing and doing nothing in the university and spending no time to study, but because he knows someone from the political party, he will be employed. So our project for the future, as I say, by supporting youth and also trying to find the job for those that trying harder, not for those youth that belong to one political party. One back there.
Hello, my name is Asia Shakir, and I am a political analyst here in DC. One of the sources of tension between Baghdad and Erbil has been the disposition of Kirkuk and the disputed areas between Kurdistan and Iraq. And of course, as you know, this issue was exacerbated when the government of Iraq took over Kirkuk a year ago. What is your position on the disposition of Kirkuk and how to resolve that source of tension between the KRG and the government of Iraq?
Thank you. I think the people of Kirkuk, they don't have a big issue to living together as much as the politicians they have. I think the issue between the KRG and Baghdad, between Erbil and Baghdad, and the problem of the disputed area is only the politicians' problem. They are making those problems. Really, we don't have a problem on the ground. I'm sure if any government, the KRG or Baghdad or the local government of Kirkuk, give a prosperous life for their people, having a project, servicing their people, then the people of Kirkuk, Kurd, Turkmen, Christian, all other nations, will support that government. But now, the politicians, always they are doing the conflict or they are marketing for those political issues in disputed area because they get voices. For example, in Kurdistan, the ruling party and two families, they always charging the people by hate speech on Arab and other nationality. And some groups in Baghdad doing the same thing. So I think the solution for Kirkuk is having a local government led by a people of the Kirkuk, and the first priority of this government is servicing the Kirkuk and the people of the Kirkuk. And I think the people of the Kirkuk will be happy, will support this government. If this government will be Kurd, Arab, Turkmen, I'm sure it doesn't matter. The people need a life, need a prosperous life. Just imagine why the people from, for example, before we had the situation, why the people of Turkey want to be a part of the European Union. Because the life is higher then, and there is a developed country and life there. In the Kurdistan, it's the same thing. If we make the Kurdistan region develop it, then the people of Kirkuk want to join the Kurdistan. And the opposite. If the rest of Iraq will be developed, maybe the people asking to go to join to Iraq. So it is about which government serving the people and giving a better sample to his people.
Please.
Hi, Dia Masin from the Anglo-Iraqi Study Center. You mentioned a lot about private sector, and as we were as we're all aware, in November there will be a set of sanctions further imposed on Iran. Iran is one of Iraq's #1 trade partners. Now, with the trade revenues that are provided from trade with Iran, how do you reconcile with those sanctions being imposed and the economic effect it has on Iraq, and what does your party believe in terms of those sanctions?
I think we are not a part of the government and we don't have any decision on that. But of course, the companies should follow the international community's decision and also the Iraq government decision. But I think most of the trade between Iraq and Iran, it's allowed, even according to the last decision from the US government. It is small businesses, some materials that is not like prevented. The main big issue is about the money, cash from Iran to Iraq, from Iraq to Iran, and the oil and some other big businesses. And for us, it's important that we have, as I say from the beginning, good relation with everybody, with the neighbors, and encouraging all other companies to invest in Iraq. This is my vision, and I think any of the countries, if we have a good relation with them and live in peace, it will service the both of the countries. Thank you.
Please.
I'm Paul Kraft from the International Republican Institute. It seems like you have a lot of overlapping ideas with the change movement. How do you plan to compete with Goran in the long run and differentiate yourself?
I hope that we will find the response from the Goran and other political parties which they are out of the PUK and KDP. All of us, we have to work together, and we will create a strong alliance and coalition and preparing ourselves for the next 4 years. If we don't do that, for us it will be harder. If all other political parties going with KDP and PUK and be a part of the government, it will be harder for us, but we will not give up. And in that case, we will try to win the people's heart and try to have more support from the people, those people that they are against the PUK and KDP. Just for the record, in the last election, the real number of the voting was less than 40%. It means 60% or more didn't believe in any of the political parties. Why? Because they are not believing in the political process. And 20% of that, 40% of this 40%, they are against the KDP and PUK. So totally in Kurdistan, we have more than 70 or 75% that they are against the ruling party or the two ruling families in Kurdistan, KDP and PUK. So we have to take a benefit advantage from those people, and this 4 years trying to have a very strong coalition, all of us.
Hi there, Lauren Head from Partners Global. My question is similar to one that was asked before. You had also mentioned supporting women specifically in terms of access to jobs and employment, and you mentioned that women have 69% unemployment in Kurdistan, and most of that is in the public sector. So I'm wondering specifically how you plan to encourage women's employment while building up the private sector.
Yeah, thank you. First, by encouraging them to study, to go into schools, universities. This is very important. The second, we have a plan for the future to make the women be independent economically. Because now the women in Iraq and Kurdistan, and maybe in some other countries, depending on their men, their brothers, their fathers, their husbands, to take the money from them. So if we don't make the women independent economically, as a economic, then we cannot make them independent as a character. Because at the end, as I say, sometimes they are waiting for their man, for their husband to support them. So supporting the women, encouraging them to study, to having their business, to having their own business, to funding them, to try to have more and more businesswomen instead of only the businessmen.
Please.
Thank you very much. Alexander Kravitz from Insight. Thank you very much for your presentation. I have a couple of questions, if I may. You're a founder of NRT, and you're a founder of the New Generation Movement. What is the relationship between the party and the media conglomerate? Also, to go back to the elections, I understand that you got, in the May election, you got about 150,000 votes, and that went down to about 120,000 votes for the May election. So I'm wondering, what do you think accounts for the decrease in votes? And in response to one of the questions, you were talking about good relations with neighbors, and you mentioned, Ankara, Washington. Have you, in your talks with Ankara and in your talks here in DC, did you get any kind of pushback or questions about the alliance with the Tevgeri Azadi party in Baghdad, with whom you have your four parliament seats? Because it's the Tevgeri Azadi party has sort of pro-PKK views, and I'm wondering if that's something that you were asked about. And finally, are you thinking of a more permanent presence, perhaps here in Washington, D.C., to talk to the Americans? Thank you.
Thank you. First, about the first question, that the voice is, first was the media. Yeah, I'm the founder of the NRTs, and still we are funding these media institutions, but we want this media to be a media for everybody. Even now, when I am a president of a new generation, but still the NRT bring all other voices, everybody, even sometimes talking and attacking me. I'm always saying I will switch the channels to other channels, but I don't ask them, please don't bring that politician because he's talking about me. No, I want the NRT to be everybody's. I want NRT to be a strong and be a good sample, and this is how we show to the people, listen, this is our sample, and if we go to the government, we will have the same good samples as the governments. About the decreasing of voice, I think even everybody in Kurdistan know, including the commissioner in Kehar. This result has no any relation with the facts and with the real data. Somebody told us, even from the KDP and PUK, that our voice was much more than this voice that they announced. It's about 127,000, and they canceled about 20,000 of new generation because the KDP and PUK did a fraud, so they canceled all the votes inside the boxes, which is illegal. But anyway, we think that this election we were much strong than the previous election, and the feedback from the people is happy for us, and that's why we are working from now for 2022 to improve the election system and trying to have free and fair election in the future. About the Tevgeri Azadi, one day the Consul of Turkey visiting us, and he talked about the issue because in the previous election on May, we had some kind of agreement between them. He say, you have an agreement with Tevgeri Azadi. I say, listen, in Turkey you have SDP, HDP, and everybody knows that they are close to PKK. But still Mr. Erdogan asking them on 2015 to join a government, and you are dealing with them. In Kurdistan, it's the same thing. We are dealing with the political party. They have a license in Baghdad and Erbil, and they have offices in everywhere. We don't ask how you think and in your mind to whom you have a loyalty. But anyway, it was only for one election on May, and this election, we came to election alone. Thank you.
I'm going to wrap things up by remarking that I find it very refreshing to hear this voice from Kurdistan and Iraq. Why do I find it refreshing? I find it refreshing that somebody is thinking hard about what foreign investment requires. I think it's refreshing that somebody is thinking hard about improving relations between Baghdad and Erbil. I find it refreshing that somebody is determined to remain in opposition, which is a good place in a decent parliamentary system. So I think you've won some friends in the room. We ourselves will go to vote on Tuesday. We won't have you to vote for, but we'll be thinking about how important it is that Iraq has come this far on the road towards democracy. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for your time.